Hello and welcome to the Weekly Dinosaw. This is week 17, so another 7 interesting, curious and innovative things I thought you might like to see. So let's jump straight into it. The first one is a tricky one to explain, but I'll have a good go at it. So this is NERF, and this is a new way of doing view synthesis. And NERF stands for sort of neural radiance fields, which is essentially using algorithms and photographs to infer three-dimensional shapes. So a lot of long words there, but essentially if you took an object, you took a few photographs of it, 20 or so, and they're as little as 8, then threw it into this algorithm. Just using the photos alone, it can then create a three-dimensional view of what was in front of it, infer where the lighting is coming from, relight it in a 3D scene, and then give you that result as a 3D explorable scene. So essentially, you're looking at the car, for instance. If you then took 10, 8 or whatever photographs of that car, and automatically you can see the light bouncing off the panels. It's doing all of that dynamically. Now if you look just beyond the car, you might see that it's having a bit of a struggle just by where the rear wing mirror should be, because it can't see that, it's not got any data. So that's why you're seeing these relatively restricted views at this point. But there are other demos using this technique where they've actually taken photographs all the way around an object. So all of a sudden 3D scanning, augmented reality scanning of objects in very high quality 3D is basically just a bunch of photographs these days. So this is not a new type of technique or a new field, shall we say, but the algorithm they're applying to this is a quantum leap ahead of where we have been. So check out the link, some other great examples there, really interesting. Second one is just sort of a broad, interesting thing that's starting to pop up with Brexit, especially in the UK. Obviously, Google data, there's some rumours, will it move, will the UK's data essentially for any Google platform be held over in the US, or be moved over there? So there are lots of people saying, well, actually we lose all of our rights and GDPR won't exist anymore and this is terrible. And reading between the lines, actually it's not that bad. In as much as if you want the right to be forgotten, if you want to find out what data somebody's held on you, there are mechanisms to do that, and it isn't like the sort of the Badlands and the dark web, for instance. But starting to see sort of big tech starting to readdress where their data is held in the UK post-Brexit. So Google may be one of the biggest first people to sort of start that trend. Watch out for that. Now hopefully there's some audio that you can hear on this, but this is SONANTIC, and again this is not a new field, but this is a really interesting new take on it. And what this is voice synthesis. So normal voice synthesis, you can feed voices in. There are companies like Lyrebird, for instance, where you feed enough audio in and it can try and synthesize a voice. They're still quite robotic and they've got that little kind of digital rasp to it. This, for instance, this is a UK startup, and they were sort of originally looking at computer games, so generative voice audio for computer games, because that's one of the biggest parts of trying to produce a AAA title these days, is getting all the audio for it and all the voice actors in. However, if you listen to this demo, it's doing all those things, like those expressive things like breath and pauses and stuttering and all those sorts of things. It's really interesting. So there's an interface for this that once you've signed up, you essentially get it's a platform that you can direct the audio. So if you want it to be a little bit more whispery or a little bit more harsh, then you can do all of that sort of thing. So essentially you become the voice director of your very own voice, and likewise you can work with voice actors, record their voice and then tune it back into how they would want it. Whether they'd like that or not, I'm not really sure. It essentially puts them out of a job. But really, really interesting. Definitely have a look at the link or listen to the link. It's very interesting. Apple iOS 14, as always, developer previews of the code starts to come out, and then people start rooting through the code and spotting things, and as time goes on, more of these things become true because it's in the code, it's there for a reason. So there are some quite interesting things in iOS 14. So this is sort of the iPhone platform and also the iPad platform. Just some interesting ones amongst others. There's possibly going to be a shot on iPhone challenge directly within the photo app. Almost for the first time, Apple are maybe gamifying parts of their interface. There's an interesting part in the accessibility as well, which is listing out for important environmental sounds. So that's everything from fire alarms to doorbells, for instance, and therefore the assumption is there'll be some sort of haptic feedback. So if you have hearing impairment and you can't hear the doorbell or a child alarm or something like that, then it can warn you. There's quite a lot of Apple HomeKit integration as well. So, you know, when your phone goes dark or goes more yellowy or blue during the day, so Apple HomeKit apparently is going to allow your home to do that as well. So your home, essentially lighting can organically ebb and flow throughout the day. Also, a slightly more interesting one maybe is for the Apple HomeKit cameras can actually have face detection in there as well. So if you have just the cameras, great. But also if you have the doorbells or whatever it is, they can actually be programmed to recognize certain faces, strangers, family members, etc., etc. And there's quite a lot going on with augmented reality deep in the interface now as well. So there will be an AR app which will allow you to explore the world around you and place things within it. But also, I guess more interesting, there's probably going to be an augmented reality shopping experience. And Apple stores and Starbucks are the two names essentially that are doing the sort of public beta essentially. So that's you could be looking at a product and it will give you information about the product. It could possibly also give you mapping directions to get to places. So we've seen demos like this along the way, but maybe this is the first time it's going to be integrated directly into the app itself using ARKit. So iOS 14 has got some quite interesting updates to it. Now this is virtual camera at work. So this is going essentially to the internet and to Amazon, buying some kit and then becoming a virtual camera operator. So all that's going on here, this is a 3D scene downloaded from the internet, then ported into or then visualized in Unreal Engine, which is a sort of a gaming engine, and then just using the HTC Vive motion trackers. Essentially, when you're wearing the virtual reality headset, you can also have motion trackers, so they can kind of look at you and you can then track objects in your hands or whatever within a 3D space. So essentially all it's doing is it's tracking a rig. You know, there's no camera involved in that rig at all, but essentially it's tracking it as though it was a camera. So you can now be a virtual director or a camera operator within a virtual scene. So that's what's going on here. So, you know, traditionally, you normally see the opposite. You see actors with ping pong balls against a green screen, and then they're combined in CGI, and now it's actually a real person with a camera directing CGI. So I've seen a bunch of this, for a while, but it's just a really sort of cute setup with off-the-shelf kit, really, really simple. So again, have a look at the video. It's really interesting how simple it is. Now, DARPA, so this is essentially the American Defense Research Department, and they come up occasionally doing some interesting things, and here's one of them. So if you've seen The Last Starfighter, I think it's from the 1980s film, or more recently Ender's Game, essentially, you know, aliens or the higher beings recruiting humans to go and help them out in their wars across the galaxy because they're great computer gamers. Actually, this is going on right now. So the University of Buffalo have had some funding from DARPA to essentially get gamers to do very short tasks. So it's not playing endless games, it's playing very small tasks to see how those people would actually get over strategic tasks. And then the algorithm is just learning. So for instance, if you had to get to a point and all of a sudden fog was put into the world, what would you do? What would you do next? So if enough people try and figure it out, then the algorithm can learn from humans' kind of novel ways of solving problems. And the ultimate goal of this is to try and control automated swarms. So this could be drones or it could be ground robots. So really is what's the strategy that a robotic army can actually put in place. So they're recruiting gamers with good strategic knowledge. So if you're one of those anywhere near Buffalo, then do sign up. Kind of creepy, kind of interesting, but that's why you follow DARPA basically. And finally, so this is from Pete and Ollie, sort of creative duo on the sort of London ad scene, I guess. It was a really cute thing, popped up on LinkedIn. And really, it's all about social distancing and stay at home. So it was just really, it's taking The Last Supper and Van Gogh and Lowry, for instance, and just photoshopping the people out of them. It's quite poignant. I went on a cycle ride into London the other day, and it pretty much looked like this. So I just thought that lots of very sort of poignant and symbolic ways of representing staying at home. So not too much on the COVID-19 front this week. Tried to keep it a little bit light. Hopefully that was enjoyable, and that's it. So hopefully see you next week.